Hey, Vato Locos, Faxi Nadu here, and today I want to talk about the Scope DSP audio platform, which is one of my favorite pieces of kit in the whole wide world. And a lot of you, a lot of my friends online have been known that I've been using this for years, and some of you have seen my modular videos, and I've been asked repeatedly about this system, and I've been asked to maybe make a video that shows a little bit of what it does and explain a little bit more about it. So here we are. So, if we go to the Sonicor website, which is the company that makes the scope, so they have a little graphic here, which is really simple but really explains it all. Scope DSP audio platform equals Dsp Hardware, which is your DSP power NIOs, plus the Scope software, which is the virtual studio environment, plus all the DSP plugins that you can open, which are sounds, synths, effects, and mix and master type of stuff. All these together equal the platform itself. So one of the main questions that I've been asked, people see my modular patches. If I open up some modular over here, and they ask me, wow, this is really, really cool. Do I need the hardware? So obviously the answer is yes, you need the hardware. Look at it like any other piece of hardware that you're using. For example, this is the box itself. So if you had an access virus, for example, it would also have DSPs inside, and you would control them via a small screen on the device itself. So here it's exactly the same. You have a hardware machine that is controlled by a screen, but instead of being a small screen, it is controlled by your computer screen, which is really great because you have a lot of space and it integrates better into your whatever you're doing on your computer, into your DAW, into your software environment. So look at it that way. This is a hardware system. The software is just the representation. It's just the virtual environment that lets you control the system. So once we've got that out of the way and we realize Scope is a hardware device, we can continue and take a look at exactly what options do you have for the hardware. So as of now, this is the latest design. This is an external card, as you can see, with a lot of IOs and stuff like that. If we take a look at the DSP hardware itself from the company, so they have two versions, the Excite and the Excite 1D. The Excite has more DSP and a little bit different IO configuration, a little more IO on the box itself, and it is also a little bit more expensive. So these are your two options currently from the company, but you can also look for the used older cards, which are Pci cards. There are different versions as well with different numbers. As you can see the DSPs on the card itself, which is really sexy and cool to take a look at. So this, from the old school, this was the smallest one, the 3DSP card, which was called, back then was called Scope Luna. Right now, the official name for it at least is the Scope Home. So it's 3DSPs, a little bit of I/O, and then you get more elaborate with more I/O and stuff like that. The cool thing about the old PCI cards is that you could chain them. So what you could do is you could, for example, buy all three of these products, and each of them would need its own PCI slot and connect over here to your motherboard. But there are also these connections on top, as you can see, and they allow you to chain up to 3 cards into one system. So if you look at my system, for example, I have 2 cards in my system. I have a big 14 DSP card and a smaller 4 DSP card. And there's an additional DSP in there that is kind of like the babysitter that controls all the DSPs. So it's 14 plus 4 plus another one behind the screens. So it's 19 DSPs total. The system considers all the DSPs and everything from the different cards as one system. And they not only show up over here, but the I/O from the different cards will show up over here. So I have a Scope Pro card. So on the Scope Pro, I have a physical analog destination, but I also have one on the other card, which is officially called the Pulsar. It was the Scope Project, I think, is now the official name for this. It's a 4 DSP card. So on this card, I also have a physical analog destination, and I can open up in my routing window. Which brings me up to this routing window. So this is your main Scope window. This is a really, really cool thing, I think. And even if you don't look at synthesis and effects and all of that, already this is something really neat. It provides you with routing capabilities for your studio. Everything over here is object oriented, whether it be actual physical IOs like I've shown here, my analog destination. This would be my sound card's physical output is represented over here, or whether it be, you know, software stuff, software drivers, like for example the wave source. This would be if you're playing, you know, from the internet, or if you're playing from Windows Media Player or Winamp, whatever. So this would be your driver that those programs recognize, as well as stuff like your ASIO. Everything is represented by a module, including and up to MIDI. Everything is object oriented over here. So this is really cool, and it allows you to do a lot of cool routing stuff. I'll give you one example that I can do that you guys probably can't do with your standard non-object oriented sound cards and stuff. So for example, I have two MIDI sources over here, and I can actually open additional ones. I can actually open more MIDI drivers, more virtual MIDI drivers. So if, for example, I want to work both with the scope and with my Nord modular, all I have to do is open up my Nord modular editor and give it a second, give it tell the modular editor that it's working with the second MIDI driver. And then all I need to do is open a MIDI merger over here, and I could merge the MIDI and whatever control signals, whatever I want to send to physically to the Nord, merge that with everything that is coming from the actual Nord modular editor, and send both these things outside. Send both these things to the Nord, and this gives me the option to work both with my DAW and my editor together at the same time. This is something you can't do unless you have this option. If you open the Nord modular editor on any standard sound card that has one MIDI driver, then it will steal this driver, and you won't be able to work both with the editor and with the DAW at the same time. So for me, anytime I want to work with a editor for a hardware synth that doesn't have USB or anything like that, that is more old school, it's really a pleasure. And you know, I don't need to edit the sound, make a patch, and then go back to the DAW. I can work with both of them. It's really a pleasure, and it opens up the world of hardware. Already this one small feature totally opens up the world of hardware, to me at least. So that's one example of the routing stuff that you can do. Really, it's just one example. You can go nuts because everything is represented by objects, and I'll show you a little bit more in just 1 second. But first, I want to go on into all the mixing sort of stuff. As you can notice, everything that I have here that is producing sound, whether it be my wave sources, my ASIO, and my ADAT, which, you know, you're hearing the mic right now through my my ADAT box. Everything is going to a mixer, which I use as the master studio mixer, just like you'd use any external hardware mixer. So it's really great because I can work with a lot of sources, and I can, you know, it replaces sort of the little shitty Windows mixer that you have here. So this would be my master mixer inside scope before I go outside. So this is also one of the great features, and it is great because I'm using the simplest version, the micro mixer, but you have a ton of mixers over here. For example, you have this one. It'll take a minute to load because it's just absolutely jam-packed with features. And speaking of loading and all that stuff, again, I want to mention, now I loaded this huge mixer. All the processing that is done in this mixer, in scope, all the synthesis, everything that I will show you, again, I want to emphasize it is happening on the Dsp cards. It's happening inside these chips over here, inside. So your computer is not doing anything right now other than representing graphics as far as processing power. Now, again, it might not matter today. Your computer can probably handle any processing power that you throw at it if you have a modern computer right now. But still, it's not only a matter of you know, the quantity, the ability to do things without using PC power. It's the quality itself as well. It is happening on dedicated DSPs. It sounds as good as hardware sounds. So that's the main thing. So this mixer, for example, as you can see, it's jam-packed with features, equalizers. You know, you can open insert effects. There's a compressor already on each of the channels. This is a full-featured studio mixer with you can route talkback channels and stuff like that, and sends, and you can do really crazy, insane things. A lot of people, I know a lot of people that actually mix, totally mix using this. They send each and every channel from their DAW into this mixer, and they just mix here and record whatever comes out of here. And you get a clean DSP based hardware mixer, which is full-fledged. There's no other product that will offer you this type of mixing and this type of functionality and this type of quality. So this is already great. Personally, I don't mix this way. I use just a micro mixer as my main studio mixer, as I've shown you, but I do use a ton of the other stuff. Some of this other stuff, if you go over here, there's a lot of effects, hardware effects, a ton of stuff over here as well. For example, as you hear my voice, it is passing through a low-cut filter just a little bit. I can bypass it and sound really, really deep and sexy. As you can see, you can chain whatever you want, and you can open multi-effects if you don't want them chained outside on the routing window and create a mess. You can chain them over here. Obviously, I can open a multi-effect inside a multi-effect. Yeah, you can go crazy. No need for all of that. I'm just showing it to you. So on that level, all these are effects. But if you go over here, you can see this black box thing over here. Whoa, what's that? Third party. So let's welcome third party into this little party over here. If we go over on the website to manufacturer, we can see there are a lot of third-party manufacturers that are working with Scope. These are the current ones. There were more in the past, different ones. There's stuff that you can get. I'll show you a little bit more about the free and older stuff that you can get. But right now, via the Scope Sonic Core website, these are the ones that are working with today. One of the major ones is Zarg, which is John Bowen, which is a guy that has been working in synth development for many, many years. He was involved with the Prophet line. He was involved with the Korg Wave Station, so with big companies and big products. And he's developing some stuff for the Scope. For example, the Pro Wave. Oops. And another example, where do we have the Solaris, which is also available. It is a full-fledged hardware synth, but is also available for the Scope. Really, really great stuff. And other companies as well. So there's really varied things, a lot of compressors, a lot of synths, a lot of EQs, convolve EQ, analyzers, reverbs, a ton of stuff. And the way all these companies build this stuff brings me to another thing. There's also an SDK available, Scope SDK. You can actually grab the SDK and build your own things. If you're good enough, Sonic Core might actually want to work with you and release your stuff. I think that's how some of these guys started. So you can get the SDK and work with that. Just take in mind that the SDK it's kind of complicated, and it's a really, really deep system. It's sort of like Reactor in a way, but it's a bit archaic and a bit hard to get into. But you really don't need to. You have a lot of really cool professional products, both from Sonic Core and from third parties. It'll take you years just to go through them. I have this system for over 10 years with the old PCIs, and I'm still finding new stuff and figuring out new plugins and new things to do every single day, truly. So that was a little bit about the FX and the third party. Let's look at the synths themselves. So you have really cool and high quality stuff over here. I'll open a few of my favorite ones. So just want to show you the variation a little bit. So let's open Minimax and Vectron. Oh, I did open the Vectron. Okay, so another Vectron and 6-string. And let's open also the Uno. So just to show you a little bit about the synth, and again, I'll say this a million times, everything is happening in hardware. This is hardware synths. The fact that you're seeing it on the screen and it looks like a VST plugin or whatever, trust me, it's not. It sounds absolutely incredible. and it is going on in hardware. If I connect, for example, this, I don't want logic. So with hardware quality, great filters on the system. The Proton, let's take for example the Vectron. So the Proton is kind of a sort of a Prophet, and not a Prophet, what was it called? The Sequential Circuits Pro 1 sort of clone. And the Vectron is a totally different thing. It's a vector synthesizer, a really good sounding one. Polyphony is controlled over here. If I want to give it some more polyphony, all I have to do, now it's 3 poly. Should be at least. Ah, okay. I had 2 Vectrons open, so this is the one that I need 3 poly on. So let's remove this guy. And this is the guy we have connected. So 3 poly. To move it over here. So this would be the Vectron, another example of something cool and unique. You can actually draw your own vectors inside and your own oscillators, and you can do crazy stuff. And just to show, there's all sorts of types of synthesis. This is a 6-string. This is a sort of guitar physical modeling synth. So 6-string. I really like this thing. And we won't hear, you know what, let's hear. I want to let you hear because it's neat that there's all these types. So this is sort of a really old one, a Juno clone. Again, really nice sound. And the last one I will let you hear is the Pro Odyssey, which is a Odyssey clone. It's got all of that weirdness in there. And as you noticed, there's lots more. Maybe worth just to show at least. There's also rhythmic type of stuff like the EDSI, which is an analog style drum machine, and it's not connected, so everything with parameters, really cool stuff. And additional things like, for example, the Minimax, which is a Mini Moog clone, a really nice sounding one. It doesn't really sound like a Mini Moog, but it sounds great for what it does itself. And there's also a lot of third-party stuff, a lot of free third-party stuff, things that people made with the SDK. For example, this thing. And there's just loads and loads and loads and loads. I actually, at some point, I really stopped following and stopped downloading it. There's just a ton of them. I think hundreds of devices, really cool stuff. Analyzer I got over here, which is really neat. Really doesn't end. And one more thing is the modular system. I think this is, to me, this is the highlight of the system, the modular. It's really, really good sounding, and it has a ton of modules, and I implore you to just check out my modular videos if you want to get into the scope modular. I think this video will tie in everything that I do with the modular videos, and you kind of understand more how I'm working, how I'm doing things. So the modular itself, again, there's the modules from the company itself, and again we have a lot of third-party involvement also with the modular. For example, there's this whole pack from this company called Adern, the Flexor pack, and just this pack itself adds dozens of modules to the modular. And there's also a ton of other third-party stuff. For example, there's CWM, there is BC modular, and more and more and more and more stuff. And for example, these are third-party drum modules. It just doesn't end. There's tons and tons and tons of stuff. Really, I've stopped following and stopped downloading just because there's so much and I just can't follow. So we've taken a look at the cards themselves, and I just want to stop over on some websites because I want to show you, I've talked about third-party stuff. So this website will show you a little bit, cwmodular.org. If you want, take a look over here. It'll show you some, again, not all, there's a lot of the third-party stuff available for scope. Specifically, it'll deal with the modular itself, and it'll sort of list all of the things available for modular, whether it be from Sonic Core themselves or from third-party. So if you want to take a look at all the modules available and all of that, you can take a look over here and just be stunned by the amount of things you got here. So I invite you to go to cwmodular.org and stun yourself and drool a little bit. Really cool stuff. It's also a really great reference site. I often go here if I want to check out a module's functionality or look for something, look for a functionality, see if I have a module that can do something. I can load this up. A lot of information, and it's a really, really great website. Another cool resource is Planet Z. This is a long-time scope forum. This is the main scope users forum. And if you go on the devices section, for example, a lot of free stuff. Free compressor, free cat multi-OSC, no image anymore. A lot of this stuff is old, and people bounce it to the top. But people are still coming up with new stuff all the time. There we go. So this is a free device. There's so many, you know, it's just, if I go over here, there's like 789 topics. So presumably there's 789 at least free devices that people at least posted on this forum. Tons of modular patches as well. Just for me, there's packs. I think there's like over 1,000 patches available online to download just for me. And from other people, it just goes crazy. Again, there's 751 topics of modular patches. A lot of them are modular patch packs. So you get really thousands of pre-made patches for the modular system. And of course, this is a forum where a lot of the Power Scope users hang out, and you know, you can get a lot of information over here. brings me to another point. One of the things that really helped me with Scope is this place. The user community is really great. It's a smaller community these days. It's really kind of like a secret weapon in the industry. Scope has not. It was big for a time, but it didn't sustain. Its wow factor for years. Not like UAD today are still going strong, and UAD is actually maybe a good example um, as far as marketing and stuff like that. So the Scope today is really not used by the casual user. It's really only used by really power users. So the community really helps because it's not something you will see in every home. It's not like an Axis virus where every other musician has it. Scope is something a little more niche, and the user community really helps you get into that niche. So it's really cool. You got some big timers using this. I think the biggest guy the biggest name is Hans Zimmer. That is using it today as the center of his studio, but there were some other ones. I know if you were talking about trance music, Astral Projection was or still is, I have no idea, but was also using Scope. The same for Infected Mushroom, and yeah, Faxi Nadu is also using Scope. So that should be a good enough reason to get Scope right there. Faxi Nadu is using Scope. Go get Scope. Go get like 5 scopes. No, I'm just kidding. So that's basically the system. Talking about it is not the same, obviously, as experiencing it. There's some guys that didn't get into the workflow, and to me, I just really can't understand that. I think the workflow itself is amazing, but even if for some reason the workflow itself is not your thing, there's so many other things that you can take from this. You don't have to use modular, you don't have to use the effects, you don't have to use mixers, you don't have to do any of this. It just provides it. It could serve you simple as a sound card, as an I/O system, as an I/O platform, like they show. Just use the I/Os, use it as a sound card. Use it like you would use an RME or whatever. Or you can use other features. You can use synthesis, you can use effects, you can use mixing, you can use the really killer MIDI routing. Just use it to suit your needs. Myself, I use almost all the features. Maybe the one thing that I don't do dedicated on Scope is I don't mix on Scope. But everything else I use, and I use extensively, and I use every single day and all the time. It's just the center of my studio. If I'm working on drones, if I'm working on trance music, if I'm just recording a video, Scope will be involved with what I'm doing no matter what I'm doing. So one last thing, just a little bit about the workflow. People ask me, so how do you connect it? Does it open like a VST? Does it do? How does it work? So it's really simple. It is hardware. Again, it is hardware. The fact that it's on your screen shouldn't confuse that fact. So for example, if I open my pirated copy of Logic 5, eMagic that no longer exists are welcome to sue me for using their pirated program from like 15 years ago. But you know what? I consider this as a abandonware. And you know what? A lot of people ask me, why do I still use such an old program? You know what, guys? Because I don't want to be an ass, and I don't want to pirate new programs, and I actually don't want to spend money right now on a DAW. If I spend money on a DAW, I'll probably get the latest Ableton. But right now, I feel comfortable morally using a sort of a abandonware DAW. I'm not going to download and crack every new version of Cubase. I'm cool with using something old that I know is not taking food from anyone's mouth. So yeah, just a little word on that. Buy stuff, buy Scope, buy Faxi Nadu music, buy DAW, buy your newest DAW, whatever. So the workflow, again, hardware. So just like if I would send now, I would want to send MIDI to my hardware synth. The same thing goes for Scope. If I want to send MIDI to, let's not do modular because I actually have to build one to show you. Let's take one of the simple, where was the Uno? Let's take the Uno as an example. The workflow is as such. As Scope is my sequencer, and it is right now set up to my first MIDI source, right over here, MIDI 1. Physically, all I have to do is pull a cable to my hardware. Okay, this is the same as pulling the MIDI cable from your hardware to the hardware synth. And then I gotta let it get back into the mixer, and then I can play it. Really, really simple. So. And I can hook up knobs just as easy. Now, if I want to record this, all I have to do is, again, the same with hardware. Again, if this was actual external synth, you would pull right to PL cables or whatever from the output of the synth and to the input of your computer. The same thing, I'm pulling two cables from the output of the synth into the inputs of my my scope, my ASIO, which in this case is Logic 5. And then all I gotta do is tell it, you know, this is your input. Again, it's the same like in any system. It's the same as you would be working with any hardware, right? And now if I play, it's showing. All I gotta do is press record. Metronome. And there we go. Really, really easy workflow, guys. You know, it's not so complicated. And if you work with hardware, then it's nothing for you. It's just like working with hardware. If you work with software, it's nothing for you. It's just like working with software. A lot of guys will see these cables and go nuts, and there is just no reason to, guys. It's just simple. It's just a MIDI cable going into the fucking device and audio cables going out of the fucking device. That's all it is. So it looks a little bit like this, but if you're, you know, behind your computer, you have cables that are just much more messier than this. So I don't understand the fear, and I don't understand the reluctance of some guys. If you give this thing a go and you get into it, you will not understand how you ever worked without it. So give it a go. If you can find an old scope card, I just want to mention that if you find the old PCI cards like the ones I'm using, there's considerations to be made. Make sure that the PCI card, you know, it's let's look for it. Scope Pro PCI card. So if you look at the cards themselves, some of them are really physically they are big. Mine has 15 DSPs on it. It goes like 14 DSPs. It goes all the way over here. It's a long, big ass card, and I have other cards connected to it in series. So you need enough PCI slots, enough length room inside your PC case, and just you need a case that can handle this. And also need a computer that will play nice with it. It's not that complicated. It'll play nice with most computers, but again, just go to Planet Z. You know, you can look around for the information, tips and tricks, problem solving, buying and selling, purchasing and trading, all of that. There's help for you. And if you buy just a new external version, obviously it is a lot easier to deal with as far as, you know, it's just an external box. It connects with a little PCIe, I think it is just, take a look inside it. It connects with a little PCIe that goes into your computer, and there's a little interface cable, but other than that, it's just much cleaner and simpler. It can also work with your laptop, which is great. So this is obviously the best scope system you can get right now, but is also the most expensive. I think that if you don't need the external side of things, if you don't need to connect it to your laptop, and you know your computer, you have a computer that has PCI slots and no problem, you know, I really recommend just look for one of these older cards, but get at least, you know, a 6 DSP card. The really small ones, the 3 DSP cards, are not a lot of power. I don't know if there's where I found the pic of the 3 DSP one. Anyways. If you're getting one card, at least get 6 DSP if you want to enjoy modular and stuff like that. The 3 DSP card will give you the routing, and will give you a little bit, you know, you could play a few effects and stuff like that. But if you want synthesis for real, and if you want modular for real, and if you want some breathing room of power, and if you want polyphony, if you want polyphonic patches, which is I think really opens up the sound of a lot of these synths, then get at least a 6 DSP card. So I hope you got a little bit of information about scope from this video. There's more stuff. I could go on for hours and hours and hours. I could really demonstrate the system for a long time. I just love it. If you don't know, if you haven't figured it out right now, I love this scope system, and it exists since, I don't know, 2000, 2002, 2003. I'm not exactly sure. Around the millennium, and it's still going strong. And I still think there's nothing that compares on the market today. It's really great that they put out the X-Site and actually have a new generation of this thing going. And I'm really looking forward. I hope the company keeps its act together and we get to see more scope. But even if we don't, the products are solid. The few bugs in the system are known. They repeat themselves. So once you become a user, for example, I know that if I've been working for a few hours or like the system has been open overnight, and I want to make a MIDI control assignment, sometimes it might crash. But it's a known bug, I'll save before. More often than not, it won't happen. And the bugs that do happen are they're not your fault because they shouldn't be there. But you should know better because you'll know the few bugs really quickly. So you'll learn how to avoid them. So to me, it's not a problem either. So get a scope, guys, and I'll see you in my next videos. Ciao.